Hi, everyone. I'm Steven Sigman.
And I'm Mike Massinio.
And welcome to the Weekly Movie Throwdown, a discussion show where each week we dig into a film that fits our overall monthly theme. It's a new month, and it's October, so it's spooky. So we're getting into some horror-based things, but we're getting into things that maybe aren't so scary. So they're scare-free horror films. Which I think is actually going to be pretty fun. I think it's going to open the door to a lot of contemporary stuff because, as we'll talk about today, some things that we see in theaters now are more horror geared toward kids or teenagers.
Yeah,
And
I think it. I
yeah,
think it always has been, but I think in a way now, what I see now when I watch some of this stuff, and especially the one we're going to talk about now, is what Scream was able to do. I feel like what we're watching, like everything that we watch now, is kind of in the shadow of what Scream brought about, which is taking your horror with a bit of a tongue in cheek aspect to it, and a winking nod that of what we know and that we know. And I kind of like that because that's just that's the kind of movie that I enjoy.
so that's what we're doing this week. And we should say that we're doing 2020's film Freaky, directed by Christopher Landon. And it's definitely in that genre. Some of the other things we do this month might not be as overtly horror comedy, but they're all have a bit of comedy to them, whether intentionally or not. So it's going to be pretty fun. Before we get into it, though, as always, let's talk about a little news.
Yeah, nothing too earth shattering this week. I think Taylor Swift's new album has taken up all of the entertainment news, but we're not going to talk about that.
I'd love to hear what the Safdies think, or Benny Safdie thinks about that, because that is going to eat into the Smashing Machines box office.
Yeah, the whatever she's releasing, that movie is definitely going to be the number one thing in the box office this week. So, but a couple of things I came across. One is something I may only care about, but that the Peanuts re-up their deal with Apple TV until the end of this decade, like 2030. And the reason that matters to me, I appreciate the fact that Apple is allowing new Peanuts things to be made, a couple of specials, a couple of TV shows. But I've always had a bit of a problem with this because I just don't think that the classic Peanut specials should be behind a paywall, and especially because Apple TV just raised prices to like $13 a month or something. I just have a problem with those specials, which were on regular TV for as long as we've been alive, going behind a paywall and being hidden from an entirely new generation. Because I still think more than any others, it's like the Peanuts, Halloween, and Christmas specials still hold up as good as any holiday specials that have ever been made. I really believe that. And I guess it's just a sticking point for me. I just think that more people should be able to see them. And I think it's a shame that, for a little while when they first got it, they allowed those specials to actually not be behind the paywall and allowed you to go to Apple and see it. But that's gone now. So just another note that you probably should buy them on DVD so that you can watch them. Because it's probably cheaper to buy the DVD than it is to actually get a month of Apple TV to watch them.
Yeah.
So
I just got the Muppet movie on Blu-ray, which I'm very excited about. So you can't watch The Great Pumpkin on ABC anymore?
no,
It's
been gone from there for like a couple of years. As I said, Apple, took it over and it's behind there. I just think that's a shame. I think those are really classic specials. And even though they were made in the 50s, I mean, like, yeah, Christmas was made in the 50s. Halloween was made in the 60s, I think. And they both still hold up incredibly well. There's just a certain sadness to them, to both of them.
Yeah.
that I think is the reason that it resonates so well. That's the reason I think it still holds up. That it's not fake happy. It's not, squeaky clean in terms of everything is great. It's not too, it's not bright and shiny. It feels a bit melancholy, like it's kind of the way holidays really feel. And I think that's the reason it still works 60 years later or 50 years later. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. That's too bad. Obviously I don't have cable, so I didn't know that it wasn't on there anymore, but Jesus, does everything have to be taken away and put behind a paywall?
I know. It's so that's always bothered me a little bit. So seeing that is just, it's just gonna be behind a paywall for another bunch of years. So again, just get it on DVD. In good news, the other thing that I saw is that I'm sure you came across this, that the Kill Bill, the complete Kill Bill, is finally going to be coming out in theaters. That when Tarantino had made this, he was originally made it as one movie. They split it into two because it was too long. But he had a cut that he's shown at his own theater, I think, a couple of times. So it's one of the
Uh-huh.
things that very few people have seen, but it has existed for a while. And they're finally going to put it out in theaters in December, which is exciting because my son was actually asking me to see that he wanted to watch this movie. And we were going to watch it on DVD because I have it. But now we can just wait and we can watch it in the theaters and watch the complete movie, which I think is going to be a good time. Like, I'm pretty excited for that.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. I almost bought both 1 and 2 on 4K recently, and I just didn't pull the trigger for whatever reason, but it'll be nice to go sit in the theater and watch
Yeah,
all of it.
I think it'll be cool to see it on the big screen because it's it's a lot. There's a lot going on in that movie. I think it's worth seeing on the big screen. I think it's gonna be fun to see it all at once. The only question is whether or not it will have a intermission. That's what I'm curious about because it will
Yeah, I
obviously
mean, it
be
would have to.
it's gonna be 4 hours long. So yeah, I think it has to be.
Yeah, I mean, they had an intermission in Grindhouse. I mean, I guess that was part of the programming of it, but it has to. The Brutalist had an intermission, so
That's right. Yes, it did.
this has to. Uh, the only story I have this week is one that's been kind of making rounds, and it's the release out into the world, or the introduction anyway, of Tilly Norwood, the up and coming actress who isn't a real human being. This was announced in a panel in Switzerland this week that this new AI studio headed by Aline van der Velden was getting a lot of requests for Tilly Norwood, this AI actress, from agencies around Hollywood. And she alluded to the fact that people and these agencies are sort of under the radar, really interested in pursuing this stuff, even though they might outwardly say that they want nothing to do with AI. So as you can imagine, it brought forth a lot of backlash from the industry, from actors to SAG-AFTRA to Equity. I mean, everybody who represents actors has a big problem with this, of course. And so
You think?
yeah. And the idea is that Tilly wouldn't replace anybody, but be like a part of the process somehow. And uh, there's actually a full length AI feature called The Sweet Idleness that's coming out that people are really very skeptical of. And I think it's going to be the first of many. We see this, already sort of putting itself into Hollywood film. I think Netflix is working with AI stuff, and A24 is backed by like an AI venture capital company. Reese Witherspoon just talked about getting on board with it and being a part of the AI boom. So it's here. It's terrible, and we'll see if it stays.
I mean, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, how do you act against an AI actor? I mean, the idea is either it's all AI or none of it. Maybe I'm crazy because I mean, we do seen actors act against tennis balls that turn into
Yeah,
stuff. I guess it would be like that. But again, even when you're doing that, someone is reading the lines off camera to you.
right.
Where in this case, it's a totally fake generated actor. I'm just, yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
It'll be interesting to see how far it goes, because I don't think it's obviously not being met with a warm reception, and I don't think the capabilities are necessarily there. I mean, there's famously, like, inauthenticity to the AI stuff. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it's AI for the most part. And so, at least I go to movies for like the feeling, and you can't recreate that with a computer. So it's
I
terrible.
just, I've been thinking about, how they chose this to be the first AI actor. So in my, the way I'm trying to think about it is that, they thought about what the ideal looking actor would be that they would want to be the first to launch it with. And this is what they came up with. I'm just very curious about that how they chose, this particular person, not a person, this thing to represent what they think the idealized actress would look like. I've just been thinking about that, and I have no statement about it one way or the other. I just think that is something interesting. I think
It seems like she's an Instagram model from what I've seen. So I would assume they take like the popularity of what's on Instagram or social media in general and run that through the machine and get Tilly Norwood. That's my guess. Like she's like the perfect like middle ground for everything that everybody likes. I would assume. I don't know, but the only other thing is that on the sort of piggybacking off that, there's something called Sora 2, which is a video generation app that really seems to have no copyright boundaries to it. And that's kind of going around Hollywood now. People are playing with it, talking about it. It's not being used in any capacity, as far as I know, in film or TV or anything. But what's interesting about that is just the level of copyright infringement. So I think SAG has developed these parameters for their actors. So the actors can opt out of it, or they opt into it, and everything else, like all the other uh, material, it's like you have to go in and opt out. So it's like there, and you have to decide that you don't want your IP being on this app, which I think is kind of crazy. I
that
mean,
is crazy.
it's like asking forgiveness instead of permission.
Right, and opt out seems like what?
Yeah. It's terrifying. I mean, this is where we're going.
It just feels like with everything that we decided that study and expertise no longer matter, that all that matters is the end product. And so we are willing to do anything to allow everyone to be able to make art or make science or make whatever it is they want to make. And the idea of studying something and perfecting it and working on something to make it great just doesn't seem to be something anyone's interested in doing anymore. It's kind of like the ultimate shortcut for everything. We've just decided that we're all experts about everything, and we can be, and we're no longer worried about the work to get there. And I just think there's something inherently worrisome about that approach to everything.
Well, it effectively eliminates labor and skill. So basically, you have billionaires and corporations getting that product that laborers and artisans make now and having the ability to do it without having those people involved. I mean, that's like the end goal for it. And it's never going to get there. It just won't. I mean,
And again,
I think AI is a grift.
I kind of tend to agree with you, but yeah, as always, I always ask the same question. It's like, what is the end goal of all of this? It's like we all become sharecroppers again. Like, what exactly is the end goal if no one can actually work anymore in the things that they want to work in or work in fields that they're passionate about? Or it's like I don't really understand what the end goal for this is when you have an entire population that doesn't have a purpose.
Yeah. I don't think anybody who develops this stuff knows what the end goal is. I mean, and if they do, they don't look beyond that to the inevitable like tipping point where it turns dark. I mean, it's already turning dark.
Right.
But, the guy who invented AI basically is like, this is not going to end well. And everybody's like, don't worry about it. So, Skynet is inevitable and the Matrix is inevitable. And that's, I think that's where we're headed with this stuff. So, Lucy Tillwood is just the beginning. Her and her 15 fingers. But, that's just the way it is. While we still have time, we can watch movies that humans are actually in. And we watched this one this week. So let's move on and talk about Freaky. So this is a film from 2020. It's a pandemic film starring Vince Vaughn and Kathryn Newton, directed by Christopher Landon, co-written by him and Michael Kennedy. And it's a body swap movie, which is very fun. It's kind of like slasher body swap. So the story is that Millie, played by Kathryn Newton, is a pretty meek high school student, and Vince Vaughn plays the Blissfield Butcher. He's a menacing serial killer, and they inadvertently swap bodies. Super fun. And then there's a clock involved where they can switch back or they're that way forever. So that's, the story is Millie has to get back into her own body before midnight. And that's that. Does she do it? I don't know. We'll talk about it. But what did you think of this film?
So this is another one of those movies that you're watching it, and my first thought is always, I can't believe that no one did this already.
Yeah.
Like, it's just shocking that no one thought to Freaky Friday a horror movie before. And yeah, it works really well. I mean, it's a very enjoyable premise. I mean, we've discussed before. I actually really liked the Freaky Friday movies, and I went to go see Freakier Friday. Like, I enjoy those movies. They're good to watch with the family. So this was really enjoyable to see it taken to this extreme. I just thought it was a pretty fun premise, and yeah, and it turns out that Christopher Langdon kind of hits my wheelhouse of horror movies. As I said, I like my horror movies with a bit of a touch of comedy. Like, it's just how I prefer to take it down, because I don't enjoy watching brutality for the sake of brutality necessarily. It's just not my jam. That's just a me thing. Um, and he's definitely created a fun little thing. And he made Happy Death Day, which we've discussed before, which is kind of one of my favorite modern horror movies. I just think it's a great idea. And as you
This
look at
is
them,
Groundhog Day.
right, as you look at these movies, I'm just going to say that as you look at the movies that Landon and his co-writer, whose name escapes me in the moment, Michael Kennedy.
Michael Kennedy.
Yeah, this seems to be what they do. They go back and take old movie premises and put them through the horror ringer, which, again, surprising that no one else has really come to this before them. I mean, they did a version of It's a Wonderful Life, Michael Kennedy did,
Yeah.
which,
It's a wonderful knife.
yeah, that one was not as good as this one. But yeah, and Happy Death Day is really a Groundhog Day horror movie. So they certainly seem to have a wheelhouse. And even Hard Eyes, which they made this past year, it's not an exact remake, but it's the idea of taking the prototypical romantic comedy, your typical Valentine's Day movie, and putting a serial killer in the middle of it. So they very much seem to have a voice of what they're trying to do, and it's fun. It's a good time, I have to say.
I'm glad you liked it. I really liked it too. And I think I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head when you mentioned Scream earlier, because I think Scream calling out all of the tropes in horror films before it kind of unleashed the ability for horror after it to become satirical in a way. And we've definitely seen that over the past like 10 years with this horror comedy resurgence. And it's all very stylized, like Christopher Landon and Michael Kennedy. If you look at their films, like you said, Hard Eyes, Death Day, they're all very, very stylized and high concept. And they make a satire out of, like, because they still have all of those horror tropes, but they make them funny. And I think that's such an interesting way to go about something that is in a field where, horror is such a big thing because it's easy to make, and just that sort of raw feeling of it kind of makes it uh, something that people want to seek out. But, for the people who aren't into that, who don't want to go see Terrifier, this is a great way to take those tropes. Yeah, I know you don't want to see Terrifier, but this takes those things and makes it accessible. And that's why you're seeing so many of these things, not only in theaters, but on streaming too. You see like Totally Killer, and, there were a few other things that the names are escaping me now that were very similar in that sort of like funny teens fight slasher genre. And it's really cool. I mean, it's really interesting. I don't love all the films, but I like that they've kind of developed this way
Right.
to make horror more
Some are
accessible.
better than others, but you're right. I mean, he even made the Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, which is exactly what you're talking about. That was like the movie he made right after, I think right after Happy Death Day, the first one. But yeah, there's this idea of kids fighting a zombie, like Boy Scouts fighting a zombie apocalypse, which is again uh, a good premise. But I didn't even realize this, but he also Christopher Landon worked on a movie called We Have a Ghost, which was on Netflix. And I watched the movie. I think I've discussed this before. That my younger son has been getting into horror movies, and he really enjoys them. It's very hard to find stuff that you can watch with a 8, 9, 10-year old.
Yeah.
And so we watched We Have a Ghost, which had Anthony Mackie and David Harbour in it as he's a ghost in this house they moved into, and they're trying to solve his murder. I mean, nothing great about it, but enjoyable enough. I mean, it's a decent movie, something I can sit through and not be annoyed by that I'm watching, a lousy movie with my kids. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. So again, I think they've really touched on something. This one is obviously a little bit more gruesome. I'm not going to watch it with a kid, but they go back and forth with this. But the feeling of it, they have a very light touch with these movies, and I think that's welcome, being able to take a certain light touch to these movies, because some of them can be very gruesome and really heavy handed, and that's not what you get here. Although the violence it all is still pretty it's something that horror fans will still enjoy. I mean, there's a couple of decent kills in this.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, this is a little more gruesome than most of the other ones. This is the only one that's R-rated, I think, in comparison to like Happy Death Day and
Drop, which is
those
also
things.
PG-13, which I also watched.
Yeah, and Christopher Landon directed that. Did you know he's the son of Michael Landon? I didn't know that.
I actually did not know that. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. He wrote a Highway to Heaven TV movie a few years ago.
That is nuts. By the way, that allows me to talk about one of my favorite television episodes of all time. There was an episode of Highway to Heaven where he fights the devil, where he actually confronts the devil, and it was a Halloween episode. It's one of my favorite episodes of TV ever. There's two great TV episodes from the 80s, like Halloween episodes, and one is that one, Highway to Heaven, and the other is an episode of Quantum Leap, where Sam also confronts the devil, and the idea is the devil is trying to stop him from making right what the devil makes wrong. Two excellent, super fun episodes. Like I think about those a lot, actually. I just started getting back into Quantum Leap, and I'm trying to find that Halloween episode because it was one of my favorites. But Highway to Heaven had a really good one too.
Wow, this feels like an offshoot podcast that we could do with
good Halloween episodes. Yeah,
episodes.
those are some of my favorites. I still think about them a lot because they were really well done.
Wow.
Yeah.
My favorite Halloween episodes are just the Brooklyn Nine-Nine ones where they have to.
Those are good too. Yeah.
Outsmart each other. Yeah. So that We Have a Ghost is actually interesting because that's exactly what I'm talking about on streaming, like how streaming has embraced this stuff. And this was in theaters, but this was in theaters during the pandemic. So it kind of had that working against it, but it still did well. And I think that speaks to the need for horror comedy and a wider audience. It came out in I think October or November of
2020. It must have been October, I would assume, of 2020. But so here's something for you. Well, I was going back and doing some research on this and going back trying to find old interviews. I don't really think about that time that much anymore. But going back and seeing interviews like those Zoom pandemic interviews, like it's hard now to go back and rewatch those. It kind of just drops you back into that moment, and it's very unsettling. Like I don't know, I had a really strange reaction to watching the Zoom interviews about this movie.
It's funny because I've got, that's still my life. Like I've just gotten used to doing Zoom calls for work, and Laura's doing like Zoom interviews every day. So it's become kind of commonplace to me. But yeah, seeing actors or directors on the other end is probably very strange. I think I've memory holed that whole time, so I don't remember seeing any of those things. I just remember that video where Gal Gadot sang Imagine. That was like really terrifying.
Oh, that's the one thing I blocked out of my memory. So
yeah. Yeah, this was a strange time. I didn't watch any of the interviews or anything, but I can imagine it's very weird to watch that. And I have to immediately go to Vince Vaughn in this movie because it's a good cast with him and Kathryn Newton leading the way. But Vince Vaughn, my God,
Yeah, so
he
a body swap movie is only as good as the actors who are in it, of course, because it's not an easy thing to do. And again, the reason Freaky Friday works is because you really like Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, and they're really good together, right? And in this movie, you have to find two actors who are not only have enough charisma to make it work, but also are good enough to play the polar opposite of the character they start with. And I don't think that's that easy. And Vince Vaughn is really the MVP of the movie because it's there aren't a lot of actors you could find that could play a serial killer and a teenage girl.
he is sometimes over the top in this, but I think that's part of the tone of the film. What it made me think about is how versatile of an actor Vince Vaughn is. And I don't think I would have said that for the first 20 years of his career. He always felt like some iteration of Trent in Swingers to me. And especially throughout the 2000s, like everything he did in the 2000s was that character, from Wedding Crashers to everything else that was along the line. But and then even into the 2010s with stuff like The Watch and The Internship, like that was still sort of that Vince Vaughn. But then he's in S. Craig Zoller films, like Brawl and Cell Block 99 and
Yeah,
Dragged
absolutely. I
Across
think that,
Concrete.
that what you find is that we kind of talk about this, and even with musicians and things, when you get to a point where you've become, the character that you've created or the acting that you've done has become so well known that you're so recognized for something that you do that not everyone else can do. And it's like, well, you're going to find a Vince Vaughn person. You get Vince Vaughn. He is very good at being that character, right? And he had a long run where he was that guy, and he was very enjoyable. But I think probably for him as an actor, you get to a point where you're like, well, what else can I do to challenge myself?
Yeah.
And I think he's done a really good job of seeking out a lot of varied roles in the past 10, 15 years just to play around with his own style and challenge himself with something new. Because he can, like I say, you can go back to The Watch anytime. I think he's making
Yeah.
Dodgeball 2 right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you can always go back to that. You can always go back to being Vince Vaughn. It's always there for you. So you can make those movies and that's fine. But, what are you going to do for yourself as well to break out of your box and challenge yourself, maybe have some fun doing something different? I think that's what we're finding with him. And Freaky is a good example of something that you might not necessarily expect him to go for. And, but he's kind of the perfect person to do it.
Yeah. He's just, because I think tonally this film is a little all over the place, as it should be. I mean, I think that's part of the concept. As a horror comedy, it's funny and it's scary, and I think he fits into it so well because of his like ability to push himself and the things he's been kind of seeking out lately. So yeah, it's great. He's the perfect thing for this, and like I said, a little over the top sometimes, but
I think the scene
that
in the
makes it better.
in the back of the car when him and Booker express their love for each other and kiss in the back seat, is like, that's pushing about as far as it can go. Because you're like, I still don't think he would, even as much as he liked Millie, I don't imagine him wanting to kiss a serial killer. I just think that's really funny.
Well, I think that's one of the themes of the film, is like seeing people as they are, regardless of what body they're in. And I mean, I kind of found that beautiful. Like Booker really just
What's on the
loved
inside,
Millie
right?
as Millie. Yeah. So, and that's kind of throughout. That's a thing that we see with both of them. So yeah, I like that. But it was surprising, and for a high schooler to have that sort of emotional depth was a little unbelievable. But I love the sentiment of it.
So, yeah. Sorry you didn't see me wipe my nose a couple of times. I've been battling a terrible cold. I'm trying to power through for you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You'll do all right.
The other thing about this movie that I liked, and I went back and when I rewatched it, what I realized, part of what I enjoy about these kinds of movies with, serial killers or multiple murders, if you think about it, everyone that died in this movie is a person that you were happy to see die. Does that make sense? Like, there wasn't any character that got killed in this that you weren't like, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with that. Like in the course of the movie. And I think that's what I enjoy about it too. Like I enjoy watching terrible people get theirs. Even the 4 kids at the beginning, you're like, none of those people are good. Like right from the get-go, that kid Isaac, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to see that kid die. The one that spills the drink on his girlfriend is just terrible. You're like, yeah, I'm fine with this. But as it goes out, like every person that once he becomes her, everyone that she takes out is actually someone you're perfectly fine with seeing go. And I think that again is like the little, the piece in the movie that makes it enjoyable. There's no one that you're rooting for that gets taken out that really bothers you. Like everyone that you see get taken out is like, yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah, there's really no moral ambiguity between most of the people in this film.
No, everyone's like cartoonishly bad. Like our fake friend that she kills, and even the shop teacher played by Alan Ruck in a really fun part. I didn't expect to see him in this, but he plays like a really fun, terrible teacher who gets
Are
his
all shop teachers that terrible?
I don't know.
My shop teacher was kind of a dick too.
I had a good shop teacher. He taught a lot of things besides shop. So he was also my driver's ed teacher. He was actually good. So.
Oh, okay. Maybe, yeah, I don't know, but I've related to, I mean, I didn't want to kill him with a table saw or anything, but remember my shop teacher was like buddies with the gym teacher, and they were
Sounds about right.
kind of terrible. I mean, they actually called me into the gym teacher's office. They were both there one day. My shop teacher looked like Fred Flintstone, and it was me and 2 other kids. And the gym teacher's like, you see these 3? They have no potential, to the shop teacher. And I was like, Jesus Christ, dude, you can't say that to a kid. And, that always stuck with me.
So your response to that should have been, so what you're saying is I can end up a shop teacher.
Yeah, if I had a screwdriver nearby, I would have put it in his neck. But yeah, sadly, I did not. And look how wrong he was. Here we are doing this podcast.
Exactly.
Sky's the limit.
Look at us. And by the way, the shop teacher murder obviously is the centerpiece of the stylized type of thing that we're seeing. I mean, that is a hell of a thing to pull off, slicing someone in half with a table saw. That was something.
Yeah, that is probably what got the R rating. I mean, most of the kills did, because it's still pretty graphic, but even that was fairly comedic, I think. I mean, just in the fact that Alan Ruck is like so over the top. I mean, he's the worst.
I'm not even sure why he hates her so much. I
know.
It just established it from the get-go that he hates her, but we don't even know why.
She's so meek. And maybe he's meek, like in actuality. So he's kind of picking on like the one weaker person than him. I don't know, but she did nothing other than being late to warrant that kind of anger.
You think that knowing that her father died, that you'd be a little nicer to her, but no, he's terrible.
Yeah.
He definitely deserved to die. Sorry.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the father dying, because that's kind of the center of the film, is that she and her family, her mother and her sister, have suffered a great loss in that Millie's father died a year earlier. And that sort of put her into this cocoon of safety where she doesn't talk to anybody and she's not really out there. And that's why Alan Ruck picks on her, I guess. But the idea here is that this family's been fractured by this trauma. And then jumping ahead to the end, it takes another trauma to like bring the women back together, which I think is fun. I mean, that's a fun thing. I would have liked to have seen a little more of that, actually.
Yeah, I was thinking about the ending, because it essentially has 2 endings, but most horror movies do. I mean, that somehow the killer never dies. But I do think that was important for the movie, because yeah, it's a thing that brings it full circle. That because we'd seen them in body swap most of the movie, we never get to see them confront each other in a real way. And that was really good at really bringing Millie's character full circle, where now in her own body, she can assert strength and finally, kill a literal demon, but all the demons that their family had to get rid of. So yeah, I thought it was a nice way to bring that back. I appreciated the ending. I thought that was well done.
And that was one of the tropes that you see in a lot of You know what that reminded me of was, this isn't a horror movie, it's the greatest movie of all time, but Roadhouse, how all of the people came together to kill Brad Wesley at the end.
Right, right.
That's very much what it felt like to me. In the living room, the townspeople being screwed over by Brad Wesley finally stood up, and, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I saw a lot of Roadhouse in that last scene. So,
Anything's
makes
possible.
me
I
a good
feel like
movie.
everything's got a little Roadhouse in it, but sure, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, we should mention Kathryn Newton too, who
Absolutely.
plays Millie. She is really great in this and has kind of become a bit of a scream queen. She was the lead in Lisa Frankenstein recently. She was in Abigail, the little
Yeah.
vampire ballerina movie. And she's going to be in the sequel to Ready or Not, which if you haven't seen that, I actually really recommend it. Have you seen that?
Not seen that.
It's really cool. It's Samara Weaving, and she's marrying into this family, and they're like basically Parker brothers. They are like the family that owns a toy company, and in order for her to marry into the family, she has to play games at night, and there's like a supernatural element to it, which is how it reminds me of this. But Kathryn Newton being in that too really sort of cements her as like a scream queen for me, being in all of these horror movies. And uh, I don't know if she was as convincing as Vince Vaughn was here, but I think you know she did an amazing job, and that's probably a harder thing to pull off
Yeah,
to
I think
to
she did
have that.
a pretty good job. I mean, her look, I mean, she really gets that sinister look down. I mean, I think she does a good job of it. I was impressed at how she was able to turn menacing. I think she did a pretty
Yeah,
decent job of that.
the opening scene where she doesn't say anything with a lot of face acting I thought that was really good, and getting the knife and uh getting ready to kill her sister, like all of that was pretty great. So yeah, she did a really good job. I think everybody in this
Yeah, I think
is really good at what they
she's
do.
really building a good career for herself. She's been in a lot of things that I've seen. I mean, she was in *Halt and Catch Fire*. She was in she was in *Detective Pikachu*, which obviously I was forced to watch multiple times. I remember her in
Right.
that. She was in *Big Little Lies*, that show as well, which I remember her. She also, I mean, I don't know what's happening. I mean, she's in the Marvel universe. She kind of
Ant-Man.
has taken over. She would be taking over as Ant-Man, I guess, but I don't know what's happening with that anymore. I wonder if anything from that period of time is going forward. So I don't know where her Marvel future is, but
Yeah, who knows?
that wasn't
But
really good
I
for
mean,
anybody.
yeah, it sure wasn't. She's also in a Paranormal Activity film, but on the other end of the spectrum, she was in Lady Bird. She was actually in a TV production of Little Women, which I didn't
Right.
know existed, but it has like a really good cast in it. Natural. So she has some really good credits to her name, and I think she's really solid in everything I see her in. Yeah,
I
I
agree.
mean, she did a great job here, and I'd like to see her lead more films. She's very fun. She's actually someone I suggested Laura pitch to be the lead in her show about her book, because I thought she would be great in that role, but I don't think they ever did it. Um, so yeah, but uh, yeah, a couple other things about this film. Just the themes of it for me are so like teen centric with like finding your identity, specifically as it pertains to high school and the politics that kids go through, and even gender roles now. I feel like this is almost horror made for high school students, which is really interesting because I think that's kind of the thing that happens with this horror comedy as they try to expand to specifically like under 18 audiences, because this one's R, but I think if a kid sees it on streaming and they're a teenager, they're probably going to watch it. But a lot of these horror comedies I really think are shooting for that audience, and so they have these themes that are more relatable to kids. And I know young people are always at the center of horror for the most part, like even back into the early slashers, but I don't think it was ever this relatable to young people, because those are always 20 somethings,
Right.
playing teenagers, and I just don't think it was written to focus on that as much as this is. Well, Yeah, I mean, that's something that's interesting coming out of this horror comedy thing is just how many kids are, relating to it because it's all right there. There are so many themes that relate for kids.
Yeah, in some ways, it's very much the same as Happy Death Day in that way. I mean, if you think about it, the characters are going through similar things about identity and go through this horror gauntlet to get to the end of becoming who they are. So yeah, there's actually quite a few similarities now that I think about it.
Yeah, and those 3 in particular were, like, the 2 Happy Death Day films in this were kind of a run for Blumhouse of this horror comedy stuff. I mean, they're sort of all over the place with the horror they put out, but I think they're seeing the most success with these, things like this, and maybe that's why they tried to turn Megan 2.0 into something more like this, than the first one was, but it didn't work. But yeah, it seems like despite the fact that they still put out a lot of more intense horror films, this horror comedy stuff is just what the market is asking for, and that
Yeah, I'm all for it. As I
works
said,
well.
I'm all for stuff like this as opposed to I don't know, The Strangers or stuff like that. It's not my jam.
Yeah, I don't I
I don't
don't
really
think
like
it
going to the
is
theater and
either.
watching people get tortured and killed. Like it's not really it's not my kind of horror.
Yeah, it's tough to do. Did you pick up on the fact that um oh what's her boyfriend's name? The guy she likes?
Booker?
Booker. Booker's last name is Strode, which it must be a nod to Laurie Strode on in Halloween.
I didn't notice that. I actually didn't even see his last name at all. I missed that
What was on
completely.
his jersey
Yeah.
during the football game. So it's just like that little nod, and there are little nods like that throughout. I mean, that's part of the kind of tropes that they dig into. Um, let's
The
talk about the rest of the
Yeah.
cast a little bit,
Yeah, let's
real
go.
quick.
Let's do that.
Just the 2 friends, Nyla and Josh, played by Celeste O'Connor and Misha Osherovich, uh, both really really good as like sort of stereotypical friends in a horror movie
Yeah.
that aren't played as stereotypes, but that do call out the fact that they are stereotypes at one point where they're running from the butcher and Josh says, "You're black and I'm gay. We're gonna die."
Right.
Thought that was pretty clever writing. And yeah, I really like both of them as solid fleshed out characters more than just what you would normally see in a horror movie.
Yeah, I
So
agree. As opposed to the sister, I have to say, which I think a bit of the opposite of. Like, I don't know how well that character plays. Especially that she immediately pulls a gun on her sister's friend in the police station, which feels a bit much. You could have
yeah,
de-escalated that situation. Like, I'm not sure why you would pull a gun on a teenage girl in that moment. I know we're supposed to
yeah.
think that she's also dealing with trauma of her father dying and is, a bit angrier. So maybe that's why. But yeah, that felt like a bit much.
A police officer pulling a gun on a black woman in 2020 is not a good look.
Yeah, it
Like
felt like a
that
step too
quickly.
far. She could have just been like, "What are you doing? You are bigger than her anyway." You could have de-escalated that situation. A couple of things like that was the one thing that stood out at me. That felt like it was necessary for the plot. But even the beginning where the butcher stabs Millie, like why would the butcher stab her in the shoulder?
I was wondering that too.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it has to happen for the story, but that makes no sense. Like, why would you? Why a killer who's we've watched murder 4 people and is supposedly murdering everybody? I don't think he'd miss that badly.
Yeah. I mean, the guy's like 220 sitting on top of a teenage girl and she's not going anywhere. She's not even able to like wriggle free or move
Right?
at
You could
all.
have played that where she does move to the side at the last second or something, but they
Yeah.
don't. They never even try that. He just literally stabs her in the shoulder, which
Yeah.
is strange.
It is strange. And the other thing that I thought was strange, or not really strange, but it very sort of over the top was when she wakes up as him. And I was trying to determine, is he just like a crazy killer who's killing animals and is just like so messed up. And he lives in this warehouse from like an 80s video with a toilet and that's like gross? Or is he some kind of like artist who just makes really dark art and has to kill to motivate his art? Because there were, some art pieces there.
It's an interesting
And
question. And who the hell is that
yeah,
guy? Does that guy live with him? Does he sell drugs on the side? Like what is the whole thing with that? That was a really strange, like thrown in thing
yeah.
that I don't, I, yeah. I mean, maybe there's 10 minutes of cut scene that explains his background a little more that would explain all this, but that felt very out of place.
I think it's just establishing that he lives in this warehouse and transients kind of come and go. That was the most put together, like unhoused person I've ever seen, though, because he was a little dirtied up, but he was very coherent, very like articulate. And it was pretty funny. But, he has all this art in there. And it seemed to me like he could just be an artist and he sees the murders as an extension of his art, or that's his muse. I don't know. But I'd like to see a gallery show of the Blissfield Butcher's work, quite honestly. I mean, it feels like a Nine Inch Nails video, but hey, I'm into that. So yeah, let's get this show on the road and
Sure.
see this art.
That'll be be a prequel movie. It's just about him being an artist who goes sideways, starts murdering people. Sure. That's what it is.
I've seen that story before and it didn't end well.
First person is the art gallery owner who's like, I'm not putting on a murder show. You're insane. And then he murders that guy. And then it's just straight downhill from there.
What if, okay, Landon and Kennedy write it and it's called Great Expectations, where he's this artist, has a benefactor, goes well, then it goes south, he becomes the Blissfield Butcher. There you go.
It's not bad. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we'll talk about Great Expectations 2 years from now. I don't know.
I don't see why not. After It's a Wonderful Knife, all bets are off. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No stone left unturned with the punny horror titles. All right. Did you have anything else you want to talk about? This felt pretty quick to me, but
I
quick
don't know
movie.
something to say about it. I don't think there's much else to say about it. I think it's a fun little movie. It's not trying to be too much. Nice hour and 40 minutes. Doesn't overstay its welcome, which I really enjoy in a horror movie. So yeah, I think it's worth a watch. I think it was a good time.
I agree. I think it's just the right amount of like gore for a horror fan, but I think horror and comedy are, and why that mashup works so well is because they're so close to one another, really, and in like the raw emotion of them.
Absolutely.
And this does a good job of blending both of those things together. So I think, yeah, I mean, definitely watch this, and it's a great way to kick off this month of scare-free, scary films because it is kind of it almost is like has the stylization of him. So it's a nice transition because it's beautiful to look at. And it brings us into the horror comedy genre, which that sort of did without trying in a way. But yeah, it feels like a nice extension of that. Thank God it doesn't have football in it. Well, actually, it does have football in it. Jesus Christ, we can't escape the old pigskin. But yeah, I think this leads really well into the other films we're going to talk about this month. Just a quick rundown of the budget for this and the ratings. The budget was $6 million, which is a very lean film, I think, when you have a star like Vince Vaughn. And
again, I think, like we said, I think that's a good example of Vince Vaughn, taking less money to do something he probably thinks is fun or interesting because he's made so much money as Vince Vaughn that he can kind of do what he wants.
They really made that money stretch. Everything has that sort of look that this genre has to it, which is very colorful, like very specific colors. And that was something I noted in when Millie tells the football players to set up the party at the mill. It's like the same day. And whoever they hired to do the lighting at that mill in that short amount of time was a goddamn genius, because that was the most ambient, like beautiful looking mill I've ever seen in such a short amount of time. And everything in the film is like that. The kitchen in the school, the kitchen at Millie's house, it all had that very stylish, very trendy look to it. And On a $6 million budget, it's pretty impressive. Um, this actually grossed $18 million despite being released during the
Yeah, that
pandemic.
is really, really something. I mean, we talked about some other pandemic movies in the past that didn't make much of anything during that time. So, I mean, I feel like if people are coming out to see horror movies is a really uh, crazy piece of information. Like, that's pretty shocking.
I think, this was the end of 2020, and I think people were really eager to like get back out there. And I think this horror comedy just has such an appeal to it. I don't know what else was out during the run of this film, but that's a very surprising budget for that time of year during 2020. That's a pretty good rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 84% critic, 80% audience, and a 3.1 on Letterboxd. So people like it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that seems
it's
about right. I mean, for Letterbox,
yeah,
it's not that kind of movie. It's not an Oscar winner. It's not anything amazing, but it's a good time.
yeah, yeah, a lot of fun. And this was the first film I was thinking about it that we've done in a while that I could just find on a streamer. I watched
Right.
it on Amazon
Yeah.
and I didn't have to go to the library and to buy anything. So that was nice. It was nice to actually do something that we could see pretty easily. And, you know, uh, it's not like we're watching obscure movies. It's just frustrating. That's a
Yeah.
big part of streaming.
You're right.
So, although I will say next week's film is going to be tough to find. You're going to have to
Yeah.
rent it
Well, it
or you
isn't.
get it from the library.
Yeah.
Um, eh, so yeah, we're going to do 13 Ghosts next week from 1960, directed by my favorite William Castle. I'm very, very excited to talk about that. But yeah, let's wrap up Freaky for this week. And yeah, we both recommend it. Let's move on to what we watched this week.
So I watched Play Dirty, which just came out a couple days ago. We talked about this
Yeah.
before. That was a Shane Black movie based on Parker with Mark Wahlberg. Um, I I was I ended up feeling a little disappointed in this movie, and I'm sure there are reviews out there that probably say exactly what I'm saying. Um, I just feel like Mark Wahlberg's been coasting for quite a few years at this point, if not a lot of years. But my thing on Mark Wahlberg, I was thinking about this. I feel like he's coasting, but I feel like he's not necessarily great enough to coast. Like, I don't think he has the charisma to just like coast on his laurels. And so it just kind of the drop off is pretty harsh. I just think he was kind of miscast in this movie. He doesn't necessarily have the charisma to pull off playing Parker. So it doesn't really work in that regard. But even the movie itself, I mean, I love Shane Black. I think he does most of the things he does I enjoy. And I didn't even really feel Shane Black in this movie. Even the fact that it was set at Christmas is almost an afterthought. It almost just felt lazy at this point. Like he just did it to do it because he's used to doing it. And there was no real point other than showing a couple of Christmas trees.
Yeah.
So that's what it felt like. It just felt kind of like a Shane Black movie twice removed. And what I felt more was like this Amazon Prime slop that we get direct to streaming stuff as opposed to a Shane Black movie. And I appreciate they gave him money to make anything because I think Shane Black should make movies. I'm a fan of that. It's just a shame that this one, I think he gets kind of lost in. I don't really think you get to see what he does. I think the other reason for that is that he was one of 3 writers on this movie as well. He
Yeah.
didn't write it for himself, and so I just wonder if his voice ended up getting diluted. And I just didn't really get what I wanted out of this. What I hope would be a good Shane Black movie. The CGI was a bit heavy-handed. There were a couple of set pieces that just felt kind of ridiculous. So yeah, it just felt more like the kind of movies you get on Netflix that you watch and forget about than anything else. And that ended up being really disappointing because I had high hopes for it.
It probably had a $200 million budget.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, who knows? So, but yeah, it was, I think because I had high hopes for it, that ended up being equally disappointing. The only thing that was really worth watching, was Lakeith Stanfield, who's always worth watching, but him being in it kind of only made the movie feel worse because you're like, I feel like they're wasting him. He was the best part about it by far.
Yeah. God, that's so disappointing. And this is why I'm trying in November to just cut out all of those streamers because it's like there's so much of this sort of like beautifully packaged stuff with no substance. And
Yeah,
God,
that is what it
it
felt
was
like.
probably a 2-hour movie, right?
It was 2 hours and 7 minutes, which was a bit much. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez.
So,
Make it shorter and cheaper.
yeah, I agree. I also watched, One Battle After Another, which you already touched on. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
And thoughts?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. It's hard to even put them into, a coherent thing. It's funny. Someone was talking to me about it. They said their wife went to go see the movie, and she had said
A
that it was
woman went to see it?
yeah, and she said that it felt a little long, and it's there was a lot of stuff going on. And I'm like, has she ever seen a Paul Thomas Anderson movie before? I'm like, it's literally you
Yeah.
could pretty much say that about any movie that he's made. I mean, you're going to get a lot out of it. I think that's what he does really, really well. Like you go in thinking it's going to be one kind of movie, but it ends up being a much more personal movie in a lot of ways. It takes a larger universal type of thing and starts out with this idea of revolutionaries or domestic terrorists, depending on how you look at it. But it shrinks the story down into really what it means to be family, which I really liked. Ended up liking in the end. I think he never fails to take chances or make movies that are interesting, regardless of how you feel about it at the end of the day. Is it my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie? No. I mean, I could say that. Did it breeze by? Do I feel like it was exhilarating? 100%. I think I just think he's really good at making movies. So I'm here
It
for it.
moves so quickly.
It really does.
It's just, I saw it for the third time 2 days ago. I went into the city to see it in VistaVision.
So how was that versus seeing it in the regular version?
It wasn't what I expected. I thought it was going to be like this incredible clarity and like rich blacks, but it looked like a 70s film to me.
Yeah, I mean, VistaVision
it is a 70s
it's
film.
a 50s. VistaVision is a 50s technology. I mean, it's what it's so that I was curious to hear that because I'm not going to see it in VistaVision and it's not playing in VistaVision near me. But yeah, I really wanted to know what it looked like because it's true. It's an old technology.
And there are only 4 places playing it in VistaVision. 3 of them are public, and I think one is on like the DGA in the DGA building or something in LA. I don't know if you saw, but he thanks Giovanni Ribisi at the end of the film.
Well, I didn't see that.
The reason this was shot in VistaVision is because of Giovanni Ribisi. So he's been repairing these VistaVision film cameras himself for like 10 years. And he's the one who suggested it to Paul Thomas Anderson. So he was using cameras that Giovanni Ribisi like bought and repaired, which is really cool. That's
what I love about people like him, like Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, it's just like no one's going to notice. Only super movie nerds will even care. But he's doing all these weird things and taking chances and kind of using old technologies and just keeping things interesting for himself and figuring out ways to challenge himself to continue to make films. And I kind of love that, even though most people will not notice nor even care.
Yeah. I mean, he did that with The Master. I mean, he shot it in 70 millimeter, and back then that was a big deal. I mean, nobody was shooting anything in 70 millimeter. They probably didn't have any cameras to do that either. But now, between that and IMAX, like everything is shot in large format and is really ahead of the game. And I remember there were like 2 places you could see that in 70 millimeter. And I went to, it was the Angelica. It was somewhere in Manhattan. And it was like unbelievable. Did anybody else think it was unbelievable because they probably didn't know it was 70 millimeter? Probably not. But to me, it was like, wow, like look at this and look at what he's doing. And yeah, he just keeps upping his game. And I think this one might get some Oscars. I think it's his time. I can't wait. I'm just so excited
Yeah,
to see how the Oscars
it definitely feels
are.
like the front runner at this point. And again, I think it's a hell of a thing that he makes a movie kind of speaking to the time that we're in. Even the fact that he's willing to even touch that at this point, which I think a lot of other filmmakers would shy away from. But again, but it looks that way, but it's kind of not. And it's a movie that looks one way, but takes a turn into something totally different.
I think in the context of today, it's a very different film. But, if we looked at it 5 years ago, and he's been trying to make it for a while, but if it were made 5 years ago, I mean, well, A, it wouldn't have had the budget that it had,
That's true.
but it would have seemed like a different film because we're not basically living through it, you know? So, very prescient on his part with taking this idea and basically the world sort of like growing to be what he set out to do around it. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Uh, had a good box office, 48 million opening weekend. Probably not going to make its money back anytime soon, but I don't think it needs to. I don't think that's the intention of it. It's going to win awards. It's going to have a long tail. So I think it's going to do exactly what Warner's wants it to do.
Let's hope.
Yeah, I'll probably see it again. When you go to see it, they give you this card. I mean, this is like I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about how everything's gamified now. And when you go to see it, they give you a punch card with all the formats on it, and you get a stamp. So, like when you see it in VistaVision, you get a stamp, but there are 8 formats. So you have to see this 8 times to finish this punch card. And that seems like, kind of a gimmick to me, but uh, I was wondering how much of the second weekend would be comprised of the same people seeing it in a different format who
Yeah,
saw it on the first weekend.
that's interesting. Especially because some of
So,
those formats are not cheap. So
yeah, man, for me to go see it at Regal 14 in Manhattan, $30. Yeah, that's crazy. I was shocked by that. And all the other formats I see it in through AMC, it's $25 a month.
and yeah,
I'm
that's
good.
great. The fact that that's rolled in. But yeah, I always say this: that someone as a parent if they've never seen an IMAX movie in their lives, because I just will not take a family to go see an IMAX movie. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm
it
not gonna spend
costs so
$100
much.
to take 4 people to go see a movie. That's crazy.
I think about that a lot when I'm at an IMAX film.
It's
Like,
just a bunch of people
what does this
alone by
cost?
themselves watching IMAX
Yeah.
movies. No one else can go. You just go alone.
I will say when I went to see One Battle on Wednesday and I came out, it was the first time I'd ever seen a line in a men's room. And that makes perfect sense because it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film.
That's
So I
funny.
was like, of course, there's going to be a line at the men's room. What else did I see this week? So went to see that on Wednesday. On Monday night, I saw something called Bone Lake, which is
Oh yeah.
this new horror film about these two couples that are they inadvertently book an Airbnb at the same time. It's like this huge sprawling manor, so they decide, well, we'll just all stay here together, and it sort of turns into this weird game, and everything is not as it seems. I won't say too much about it because I don't even think it's come out yet, but um, it's definitely not what it was marketed as, in my opinion. Like it was the bone in Bone Lake. I assumed from the marketing was like boning, like everybody's getting it on, and it was not that. It was like just sort of run of the mill. Um, but it was interesting enough. I thought it was a little predictable, but still, a decent horror film. It's directed by Mercedes Bryce Morgan, and I've seen her really out there promoting it, and that got me to go see it. So, yeah, not too bad. I yeah, I would say go see it if you like horror movies. It's not a horror comedy, although actually it kind of is. Now that I think about it, there's some very funny stuff in it. So yeah, maybe it follows this trend of horror comedy, but leans a little more into the horror. The other thing I saw yesterday was The Smashing Machine, the new film from Benny Safdie.
Yeah, I was excited
Uh,
to see that, and everything I've read about has been mixed, and so I was curious to talk to someone who's really seen it. So what did you think about it?
I thought it was pretty good. Dwayne Johnson was great in it. The prosthetics are sensational. I mean, they're, to me, at my untrained eye, I really saw nothing of like seams or anything. He looks like a different person in like his face anyway. And I thought he did a great job in it. Emily Blunt is okay. I think she's playing some kind of strange roles lately that are a bit thankless and a bit sort of over the top. But I thought she was fine. I really like the Safdie brothers. So it had a lot of their kind of dreamy sort of loose style to it. And so I really appreciated the filmmaking of it. And it's a very interesting story. I had no knowledge of this Mark Kerr guy or like sort of the pre-UFC fighting. So it was interesting to see that. I really hate watching people fight. Like that really upsets me. So it was tough to get through some of it, but the story behind is really great. I mean, this Mark Kerr guy was, I don't know how accurate it is to his life, but he's actually in it at the end. So, and I don't think that's giving anything away, but so he must have okayed it. And, yeah, I think, will Dwayne Johnson get an Oscar nomination? I don't know. Maybe, because he's playing a real person and he's fairly good at it. So yeah, he might be contending with Leo for an Oscar this year, which, great. That's good for him. I like seeing him get back to doing things that aren't Jumanji, and like, all the high, just the high IP stuff that's $1 billion and no substance.
Yeah, I think we're seeing this. He talked about how much he wanted to challenge himself with this and how he wasn't getting roles because he wasn't willing to kind of challenge himself. So I think this may be the first of seeing him expanding as an actor. As someone who loved Jumanji, by the way, I really like those movies. Make no apologies for it. I'm happy to see him stretching himself. Yeah, I think that now that he's probably really moving away from wrestling, that he'll focus more on the craft and he wants to take on different roles. So we'll see. Like Vince Vaughn, I think he's kind of done all he can do with what he was doing, and he wants to try something new.
It reminds me a bit of Tom Cruise in that his early stuff was him actually acting. I mean, we talked about Be Cool on this show, which wasn't a great film, but he was very good in it for the stereotypical character that he was playing. He was in Southland Tales, which he was really good in. And I think he started out doing like quote unquote acting and really like trying to stretch himself. And then he got into the blockbuster stuff and kind of gave that up. Just like Tom Cruise did. But now you see Cruise going back to working with NRE2 and maybe getting back into stretching himself. And hopefully you see Dwayne Johnson doing that too, because coming off of Black Adam and like the other things that didn't work out, I think he has great acting chops and I'd like to see more of them. So yeah, hopefully like Sandler, working with the Safdies, it'll sort of launch him into something different, which would be great. So,
or he'll make the third Happy Gilmore. I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, he could do both. Yeah,
we'll see.
All right. Well, that's it for another episode. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week when we talk about William Castle's 13 Ghosts. So please do join us then, and we'll talk to you later. So long. As always, thanks for listening to the Weekly Movie Throwdown. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode, so be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And for even more from us, visit moviethrowdownpod.com or connect with us on social media. We're Movie Throwdown on Letterboxd and at Movie Throwdown Pod everywhere else.